kids, welcome back to my channel. My name's Lizzie. I hope you're doing good, being good for your parents, staying healthy out there. But I'm super excited to teach you a story about the Great Houdini, the best magician / escape artist ever in the world. Everybody knows who Houdini is, and one of my favorites when I was a kid, so I'm super excited for you to learn about him today. So if you need a snack, if you need a blanket or a drink, hit the pause button. If not, we're going to get right rolling into the story of the Great Houdini. Chapter 1. Every summer, the circus came to Appleton, Wisconsin. 9-year-old Eric Wise loved the acrobats and magicians. He wanted to be a performer. "I will call myself the Prince of the Air," he told his brother Theo. Eric made a trapeze out of a broomstick and 2 ropes. His mother sewed him a costume. He looked like a real acrobat. Soon, he was ready for his first performance. There he is. He made his own trapeze swing, and his mom made his costume. Super cool, right? Everybody's got to start somewhere. The neighborhood kids gathered to see the show. Eric and Theo had made a stage. An old sheet was used as a curtain. Eric ran out from behind the curtain. He grabbed the trapeze and began to swing back and forth. He stood on his hands. He hung by his knees. And then it was time for the best trick. Theo stuck needles in the ground. Eric swung over the needles. He picked up every single one with his eyelids. Oh my goodness! That's crazy. All those needles he picked up with his eyelids. How does he do that? And his sheet curtain. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Eric Wise was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1874. Soon after, the whole family moved to America. His father was a rabbi. He didn't make enough money to feed his large family. Eric and his brothers did odd jobs to earn money. Eric ran errands, sold newspapers, and shined shoes. He decided to quit grade school. In those days, there was no laws to make children stay in school. Eric needed to help his family. He got a job in a locksmith shop. Back then, it was very common for little boys to learn a trade instead of going back to school. But we learned that it's more important for you to get an education and learn a trade later. That's why now you have to go to school. Eric learned to take locks apart and put them back together. He also learned to open locks by using a pick made of wire. Soon, he could open any lock in the shop without a key. Pretty cool, right? It's picking locks. Chapter 2. Eric was fascinated with magic. He read every book on magic he could find. He learned coin and card tricks. He even learned how to escape after being tied up with rope. One of Eric's favorite books was about the French magician Jean Eugene and Robert Houdin. Eric was thinking of him when he made up his stage name. He added an I to Houdin, and then he changed his nickname Airy into Harry, and so Harry Houdini was born. That's his stage name. Harry Houdini, the Great Houdini. There he is, picking all the locks without the key, and he's learning all about all the magicians. While still in their teens, Harry and Theo put together a magic show. They called themselves the Brothers Houdini. They pulled coins and cards out of thin air. They turned a candle flame into a handkerchief. Harry practiced his hand movements for hours on end. "Quicker than the eye can see," he told Theo. The brothers Houdini always saved the best trick for last. It was called metamorphosis, which means change. Harry could change into Theo. Oh my goodness. Harry tied Theo in a sack. Then he locked him in a trunk. He placed a curtain in front of the trunk. Harry went behind the curtain. At the count of 3, the audience saw Theo move the curtain and Harry jump out of the trunk. The trick was so quick, people could not guess how they did it. Oh my goodness. So he puts Theo in the trunk and then pulls the curtain, and then all of a sudden his brother's pulling the curtain open and Harry's in the trunk. How does he do that? That's why he was the Great Houdini. He did so much cool stuff. They took their act on the road and ended up in New York City. Harry and Theo got a job performing at an amusement fair on Coney Island. Here, Harry met Bess Rayner. She was performing in a song and dance act with her sister. Harry and Bess fell in love. They were married in 1894. Bess took Theo's place in the act. It was the end of the brothers Houdini. Theo went on performing as a solo magician. He called himself Hardine, but he never became as famous as his brother. Oh no, how come they couldn't all do an act? Chapter 3. Harry and Bess struggled for years to find work. Finally, the Welsh Brothers Circus in Pennsylvania gave them a 6-month contract. The Houdinis put together some new tricks. They added torches to their famous metamorphosis illusion. Harry entered the trunk handcuffed. Bess emerged from the trunk wearing Harry's coat. Harry's ability to pick locks came in handy for handcuff escapes. He also knew there was some cuffs opened when they were hit on a hard surface. He also knew that some cuffs opened when they were hit on a hard surface. He tied a piece of metal to his knees, hidden under his pants. When he smacked the cuffs against the metal, the cuffs magically snapped open. I forgot a word. Houdini making words disappear. Soon, handcuff tricks were a regular part of Houdini's act. He always escaped easily, but the audience never seemed amazed. Oh, tough crowd. There he is trying to break out of stuff. I don't get it, said Harry to Bess one day. I'm locked up tighter than Fort Knox, and I bust out in seconds. I make it look easy. Maybe it looks too easy, replied Bess. From then on, Houdini did the handcuff escapes inside a cabinet with only his head showing. He took his time. He groaned and sweated and strained, and then he burst out waving the cuffs. The audience went wild. Now they loved seeing Houdini break free. So you needed the drama. People needed to think you were struggling. Houdini added a straitjacket escape to his act. A straitjacket has very long sleeves. It is put on backward. The arms are crossed in front and tied behind. A belt is buckled around the waist. The escape was hard work. Houdini had to undo the buckle from inside. He had to get the sleeves over his head. For almost anyone else, it would have been impossible, but not for the Great Houdini. Once, the straitjacket escape took Houdini over an hour. He rolled all over the floor. He jerked and wrestled with the jacket, and then he finally was free. Houdini's body was bruised and sore. The pain and agony of the struggle will live forever in my mind, he said later. So see, the jacket's tough because your hands are in front of you, but everything is tied up on the back. So you got to get your hands around back to untie it, and it took him so long, and he got so many bruises. Houdini spent up to 8 hours a day working on new escapes. But no matter how hard he worked, Houdini was not yet a star, and that's what he wanted most of all. In 1900, Houdini bought 2 steamship tickets. He and Bess were bound for England. They hoped this move would bring the stardom Houdini was seeking. So we got on a ship. Looks like the Titanic, doesn't it? Chapter 4. Houdini and Bess didn't know anyone in London. They had no bookings. They had only enough money to last them 1 week. Houdini went to every theater looking for work. Finally, C. Dudis Slater, the manager of London's best music hall, booked the Houdinis for a week. But soon, they were out of work again. there were too many handcuff escape artists in England. Now, if you could break out of cuffs from Scotland Yard, cuffs, oh my goodness. Now, if you could break out of cuffs from Scotland Yard, Slater told Houdini, I could give you steady work. Scotland Yard must have made some pretty strong handcuffs. Houdini never let a challenge go by. He was ready and willing to try. Scotland Yard was the headquarters of the London police. Criminals knew that it was impossible to break out of a jail cell in Scotland Yard or to crack the cuffs that were used. But Houdini knew that 2 keys could open most British cuffs, and he owned both of them. Houdini was handcuffed to a stone pillar inside a cell. He was checked for hidden keys, but the police could not find any. Houdini had hidden the key where no one would think of to look. He swallowed it and was holding it in his throat. Ugh. So you had to throw it up? You won't be going anywhere, I'm sure, said the superintendent Melville as he closed the door with a smile. But Melville was wrong. In seconds, the handcuffs clattered to the floor. Houdini was free. It was unbelievable. The Houdinis got a 6-month booking. The show sold out every night. The Houdinis became the talk of London. So finally, he did it. He got that fame he wanted by doing something no one else could do, breaking out of Scotland Yard. When the 6 months were up, Houdini got work in Paris, France. He came up with a dangerous stunt to get people's attention. He would jump into the river, handcuffed. Ugh, now you can't swim in there. It looks gross. A large crowd gathered. Handcuffs were locked on Houdini. His wrists were chained. 2 people helped him climb a ladder to the highest pillar on the bridge. Houdini balanced on top of the pillar. Suddenly, he threw himself into the muddy river. The waters closed over him. Seconds went by. The crowd held its breath. Then Houdini popped up, waving the cuffs. He had done the impossible once again. So they dropped him in the water, handcuffed, and then everybody thought he was drowning, and then he popped up like, no, I did it. Very dramatic. Houdini and Bess toured Europe for 5 years. Their shows became more and more popular. When he came back to America, Houdini was world famous. So finally he did it. He was finally famous for his cool magic. He just had to go overseas first. Chapter 5. Houdini bought a huge house in New York City. It had 2 rooms just for his library. He had over 5,000 books on magic. Houdini was a big star now. He took his show across the country. He toured from Boston to New Orleans to San Francisco. Traveling the states, doing his magic. In those days, there was no television. Today, when a magician such as David Copperfield goes on TV, he becomes famous overnight. It took Houdini years and years of traveling and performing all over the world to become famous. Houdini was not the only escape artist touring the country. He needed to keep his show exciting. He wasn't going to be second to anyone. So he always had to think of new stuff to keep it fresh. Back then they didn't have TV, so you had to go to their city and perform for them to even know who you were. So he had to go everywhere. Houdini came up with a new underwater stunt. He called it the water torture cell. A glass cabinet full of water stood on the stage. It looked like a phone booth. Houdini's ankles were locked into a wooden brace. He was then lowered into the water, upside down. The cabinet was locked with a steel lid. A curtain was pulled in front. 3 minutes later, Houdini was free, but the cabinet was still locked. How did he do it? The water torture cell escape was Houdini's most famous stunt. He never told anyone how he did it. He liked to keep his secrets to himself. There he is. You lower him in upside down in the water. And this was locked. And then when they pulled the curtain back, he was standing outside of it, even though you just saw him locked in there. And nobody, to this day, knows how he did it. Chapter 6. Houdini had always kept himself in great physical shape, but now he was over 40 years old. The escapes were getting harder to do. He began to put magic tricks back into his act, but these illusions were bigger than the ones he used to do. Houdini's biggest magic trick of the time was the vanishing elephant trick. He performed it for the first time in 1918 in New York City. "Ladies and gentlemen," Houdini shouted, "please welcome Jenny." Jenny, the 10,000-pound elephant, tromped into the ring. She wore a wristwatch on her left hind leg. "Oh, what a cute little elephant named Jenny. Everybody say hi, Jenny." 15 men wheeled out an 8-foot square cabinet. It was big enough to hold an elephant. Jenny was led into the cabinet. Houdini pointed at the watch on her back leg. "Jenny keeps good time," he told the audience. "She will vanish in 2 seconds." The doors were closed. Houdini counted to 2. He opened the doors. Presto! The cabinet was empty. Jenny had vanished into thin air. The audience loved this wonderful trick. It became one of Houdini's most famous illusions. So he put the elephant in the box, and then the elephant was gone. How the heck did he do it? Super fast. Houdini still performed a few of his old escapes. One was the straitjacket escape, but with an added twist. Houdini took the stunt outdoors. He performed it hanging upside down from the outside of a building, 45 feet above the street. Oh my goodness. Houdini stopped traffic with his stunt. Thousands of people jammed the streets to watch. Once, a high wind slammed Houdini into the side of a building. He was badly bruised. Imagine just windy days. Woo! Houdini's daring escapes brought him near death more than once. Many people thought it was only a matter of time before an attempted escape took his life. Soon, Houdini would meet his death, but not in the way people imagined. So there he is, hanging outside a building by a straitjacket. That's gotta be scary. One mess up and splat you go. Chapter 7. In the fall of 1926, Houdini was performing in Montreal, Canada. Two students came from his dressing room. One had heard that Houdini was strong enough to take any punch. Before Houdini could prepare himself by clenching his muscles, the student hit him hard in the stomach several times. Houdini was in severe pain. At the evening show, he was in cold sweat. His temperature was high. In Detroit the next day, Houdini went to a doctor. The doctor told him his appendix had to be removed. After the operation, Houdini grew even sicker. He had an infection. Houdini should have canceled his show, but he didn't. That night, he went on stage with a temperature of 104. After the first act, he collapsed backstage. Houdini was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He was dying. Houdini had challenged death many times. He was used to winning, but this time he would lose. Houdini died in the hospital on October 31st, Halloween. His body was sent back to New York City. It was sent in a bronze coffin Houdini had planned to use in his buried alive escape. Newspapers all over America carried the story of Houdini's death. 2,000 people attended his funeral. Outside, thousands more jammed the streets. There would never be another magician like Houdini. Many believed he had superhuman powers. But Houdini always told them, "There is a trick to everything I do." Oh, sorry. There he is being carried in a special coffin. That's sad. Did I show you that? When he's passing out on the stage and they're getting punched. Perhaps Houdini's greatest trick was becoming who he was. He was born into a poor family. He was uneducated. But through hard work and determination, he became the world's most famous magician and escape artist. Houdini wrote books, starred in movies, and was the president of the Society of American Magicians. Once, reporters asked Bess if she knew the secret of Houdini's success. She replied, "It is Houdini himself. That is the secret." That's what he really looked like, Houdini. That just goes to show you, if you have a dream and you practice every day and you work hard, it doesn't matter what you come from, what education you have, you can do anything you put your mind to. And everybody has magic, a little bit of it. What magic do you want, or what do you want to use your magic on? Do you want to be an actor, a singer, a teacher, a doctor? You can do anything you want. You can be a Houdini if you really want to. I hope you liked it. I'll see you all next time. Be good out there, kids, okay?